There's a level of anointing that is so powerful that it doesn't just attract blessings, it also attracts warfare. When God places His anointing upon you, it's not just a gentle blessing, it's a spiritual nuclear weapon that disrupts the entire kingdom of darkness. It's the same power that enabled David to kill Goliath, that allowed Elijah to call down fire from heaven, and that empowered Jesus to cast out demons with just a word. When you're dangerously anointed, you become a walking threat to the kingdom of darkness. The very first sign that proves that you are very anointed is that your spiritual attacks always intensify after you pray. Most people think that anointing often leads to peace, but dangerous anointed prayers often leads to warfare. When you pray with anointing, you're not just having a quiet conversation with God, you're literally dismantling strongholds in the demonic realm. The Bible tells us in Ephesians chapter 6 verse 12, "For we wrestle not against flesh and blood, but against principalities, against powers, against the rulers of the darkness of this world, against spiritual wickedness in high places." Every time you pray, you're entering this wrestling match, and the more anointed you are, the more damage you inflict on the enemy's kingdom. Although you might not always see what happens around you, there is so much that happens in the spirit realm when you pray. Your prayers dismantle and shake up the powers of darkness, break chains, set captives free, and much more. This triggers a reaction from the kingdom of darkness, after which they regroup to attack you. If your prayers were not powerful or anointed, they would not even notice your prayers, and neither would you receive those many attacks. When you pray with dangerous anointing, you become a priority target because you're actually inflicting damage on the kingdom of darkness. In Daniel chapter 10 verses 12 to 13, the angel told him, "Fear not, Daniel, for from the first day that thou didst set thine heart to understand and to chasten thyself before thy God, thy words were heard, and I am come for thy words. But the prince of the kingdom of Persia withstood me 21 days. Daniel's prayers triggered a 21-day spiritual battle in the heavenly realm. The more anointed your prayers, the more they disrupt demonic operations, and the more hell fights back. So if you've noticed that every time you pray, you seem to get more spiritual attacks than normal, that's not a coincidence, it's confirmation that you're very anointed. The next sign that proves you are highly anointed is that you will often see visible manifestations and results from your prayers. Prayers have fruits. When you are one who prays and you see the outcome, that means you are anointed. The Bible tells us in Acts chapter 19 verse 11, "And God wrought special miracles by the hands of Paul." Notice the word special. The Greek word here is outaikouses, which means not ordinary or extraordinary. When you're dangerously anointed, your prayers don't just get answered. They produce extraordinary results that can't be explained by natural circumstances. True anointing always produces visible and obvious results. It's not just about feeling good or having warm emotions during prayer. It's about seeing actual breakthrough, actual healing, actual deliverance, actual provision. When Jesus walked in anointing, blind eyes opened, lame people walked, and dead people came back to life. That's the nature of dangerous anointing. It doesn't just comfort, it conquers. When oil was poured on someone in biblical times, it didn't just touch the surface. It penetrated, it spread, it left a lasting mark. That's what happens when you're dangerously anointed. Your prayers don't just bounce off the ceiling. They penetrate spiritual barriers and leave lasting changes in the natural realm. If you find that your prayers consistently produce results, if people get healed when you pray for them, if breakthrough comes when you intercede for situations, if strongholds break when you engage in spiritual warfare, that's not luck or coincidence, that's dangerous anointing in operation. The apostles experienced this kind of anointing. In Acts chapter 5 verse 15, we read, "Insomuch that they brought forth the sick into the streets and laid them on beds and couches, that at the least the shadow of Peter passing by might overshadow some of them." Peter's anointing was so dangerous that even his shadow could heal people. That's what happens when you carry a level of anointing that threatens the kingdom of darkness. The third sign you will see when you are anointed is that you will often face intense persecution. There is a common misconception that the more anointed you are, the more people will like you, but this is quite the opposite. Nothing attracts hatred and attacks as anointing does. The more anointed you are, the more persecution you will face. This persecution doesn't just come from the world. It sometimes comes from within the church itself. The most anointed people in history weren't popular. They were persecuted. Moses faced rebellion, Jesus faced crucifixion, and the apostles faced martyrdom. If you're walking in true anointing, you're not looking for applause, you're looking for breakthrough. Jesus said in John chapter 15, verse 20, "Remember the word that I said unto you, the servant is not greater than his Lord. If they have persecuted me, they will also persecute you. If they have kept my saying, they will keep yours also." If you're walking in dangerous anointing, you're going to face the same kind of opposition that Jesus faced. Religious people will question your methods, jealous believers will try to discredit your ministry, and the enemy will use both saved and unsaved people to come against you. When you're dangerously anointed, you're not just facing random opposition, you're being systematically hunted by the forces of darkness. They will use every available weapon against you, including people who claim to serve God. Look at every major figure in the Bible who carried anointing. Moses faced rebellion from his own people. David was hunted by King Saul for years. Elijah was threatened by Queen Jezebel. Jeremiah was thrown into a pit by his own countrymen. Jesus was crucified by religious leaders. The apostles were beaten, imprisoned, and martyred. If you're walking in the same kind of anointing that these men carried, you're going to face the same kind of persecution. Persecution is often proof of your anointing. The enemy doesn't waste time persecuting people who pose no threat to his kingdom. If you're facing intense opposition, if people are spreading lies about you, if you're being attacked from multiple directions, it might be because you're carrying something that terrifies the kingdom of darkness. Paul understood this principle. In 2 Corinthians chapter 12, verse 10, he wrote, "Therefore I take pleasure in infirmities, in reproaches, in necessities, in persecutions, in distresses for Christ's sake. For when I am weak, then am I strong." Paul learned to see persecution not as a problem, but as proof of his anointing. The fourth sign you will see and know you are anointed is that your presence changes spiritual atmospheres. When you're dangerously anointed, you don't just adapt to your environment, you transform it. People can sense something different about you even when you're not saying anything. Demons manifest in your presence. Religious spirits get uncomfortable around you. People either love you or hate you, but they can't ignore you. This happens because dangerous anointing carries the actual presence of God. In 1 Samuel chapter 16, verse 13, we read, "Then Samuel took the horn of oil and anointed him in the midst of his brethren, and the Spirit of the Lord came upon David from that day forward." When you're dangerously anointed, you're literally clothed with God's presence, and that presence changes everything around you. Jesus experienced this constantly. In Luke chapter 4, verse 36, after Jesus cast out a demon, the people said, "What a word is this? For with authority and power he commandeth the unclean spirits, and they come out." You might notice that when you walk into certain places, the atmosphere changes, conversations stop, people start acting differently. Some people are drawn to you while others feel uncomfortable. This isn't about your personality. It's about the anointing you carry. You're literally carrying the presence of God, and that presence disrupts spiritual atmospheres. The final sign of dangerous anointing is that you begin to experience supernatural encounters and receive revelations that go beyond normal Christian experience. God begins to show you things in the spirit realm. You might have prophetic dreams, visions, or supernatural encounters that give you insight into spiritual realities. In Joel chapter 2, verse 28, God promised, "And it shall come to pass afterward, that I will pour out my spirit upon all flesh, and your sons and your daughters shall prophesy, your old men shall dream dreams, your young men shall see visions." When you're dangerously anointed, God doesn't just give you a little bit of revelation, He pours it out abundantly. These supernatural encounters aren't just for your personal edification, they're strategic downloads from heaven that equip you for spiritual warfare. God shows you things so you can pray more effectively, so you can discern spiritual activities, and so you can operate in greater authority against the kingdom of darkness. Daniel received revelations that helped him understand the times and seasons. Ezekiel saw visions that revealed God's plans for his people. Paul was caught up to the third heaven and received revelations that shaped his ministry. When you're dangerously anointed, God begins to pull back the veil and show you things that most people never see. The revelation you receive isn't just information, it's ammunition for spiritual warfare. Every prophetic word, every vision, every supernatural encounter is a weapon that can be used against the enemy. That's why dangerous anointing is so threatening to the kingdom of darkness. You're not just blessed, you're armed with heavenly intelligence. If you're experiencing these 5 signs, understand that you're not dealing with problems, you're dealing with promotion. God has marked you as someone who can be trusted with dangerous levels of spiritual authority. The enemy's response to your anointing is actually confirmation that you're operating in a realm that threatens his kingdom. The key is to embrace your anointing instead of running from it. Don't let persecution discourage you. Don't let spiritual warfare intimidate you. Don't let people's negative reactions make you doubt what God has placed within you. You're dangerously anointed, and that makes you one of heaven's most valuable weapons in the battle against darkness. Remember, the same anointing that attracts warfare also attracts victory. The same presence that makes demons flee also makes angels camp around you. The same authority that triggers persecution also breaks chains of oppression. You're not just anointed, you're dangerously anointed, and that's exactly what this world needs. Thank you for watching. If you love our videos, please feel free to subscribe to our YouTube channel